Dear students, let us start with the module 5. In this module, that is the input and interaction, curves and animation, today we are going to study about the input devices, the clients and servers, display lists and display list and modeling. So first we will see the different type of input devices. An input device is a device through which we are going to give some value so that we can control the program. So input device can be viewed as having two particular properties. It can act as a physical device or it can act as a logical device. So physical device means we are talking about the physical properties, its presence, okay. And in the logical devices, as an application programmer, we are more interested in how actually it is going to influence the program. So in the logical device, we are going to bother about its high-level interface with the application program rather than its physical properties. So logical devices are somewhat similar to the high-level programs in which we are going to read and write a value. Although we are going to enter some values through the keyboard and we are going to see the output on the display, we also can use some mechanisms such as redirection to have the input come from the output of the another program or have output placed in a disk file. Even if we are using the keyboard and the display, the use of the scanf and the printf requires no knowledge of the properties of the physical devices, such as the keyboard codes or the resolution of the display. So when I press a key from the keyboard, we are going to get the equivalent ASCII code. But we don't have to worry about which key is for which ASCII code, just you have to press the key. And then we don't have to bother about the resolution of the system. So rather the scanf and the printf for the logical functions which are defined by how they handle the input or the output character strings from the perspective of the C program. More generally, data input and the output in C are done through functions such as printf, scanf, getchar and putchar, whose arguments they use the standard C data types, and by making use of the C in and the C out streams in C++. When we output a string of characters using the printf or the cout, the physical device on which the output appears would be printer, a terminal or a disk file. This output could even be the input to another program. So the details of the format required by the destination device are of a minor concern to the writer of the application program. In computer graphics, the use of logical devices is somewhat more complex because the forms that the input can take are more varied than the strings of bits of characters to which we are usually restricted in non-graphical applications. For example, we can use the mouse, that is a physical device, to select a location on the screen of our CRT or to indicate which item in a menu we wish to select. Each use shows a different logical input function. In the first case, an XY is returned to the user program. In the second, the application program may receive an integer identifier which corresponds to an entry in the menu. So the separation of the physical from the logical devices not only allows us to use the same physical device in multiple ways, but also allows the program to work without modification if the mouse is replaced by another physical device such as the data tablet or a trackball. The basics of all this computer graphics interface was started with the project Sketchpad by Evan Sutherland of Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the year 1963. So this was the first computer program which made use of the graphical interface. So this program organized its data as objects and instances. So geometric constraints was used in the Sketchpad so that the user could easily identify the properties of the drawing. So we can see the object on the display. We can select any object, and this selection can be done by using any hardware devices like the light pen, mouse and trackball. The object can change its properties, or it can move, or it can rotate, or it can change itself. So continuously there will be an interaction between the user and the program. So that concept was brought about by Evan Sutherland by making use of his project Sketchpad, which earned him many prizes and awards. From the physical perspective, the input devices are having certain properties which are suitable for certain tasks than for the others. So if you take a mouse for an example, the mouse can be used for pointing, and the trackball, it is also used for pointing, but by making use of a different type of a physical device. So the keyboard can be a physical keyboard which can be giving some character codes. A tablet PC, it can use for recognizing some software to decode the user's writing with a stylus. Similarly, a space ball is having different purpose, joystick is having a different purpose, and the light pen, when used on a photo detector screen, it is used for a different purpose. So every physical device is having different ways of interpreting the input. As an application programmer, we are more bothered about the logical property of an input device rather than a physical property of the device. Suppose if I am having a statement like C in X, which is in C++, or scanf, which is in C, we are not bothered about what is the input physical device I am using here. We are more worried about what is the data which we are getting from this values X. So the device can be a keyboard, it can be a file, or it can be output from another program, so that we can't tell, but we are more worried about what is the input variable, what it is carrying. So in this case, it is an integer that is going to be returned to the program regardless of the whatever type of the physical device from which it is coming. So it can be the keyboard, it can be the mouse, or it can be any other physical device, but we have to think only about the value of the X, what I am getting into the program from the physical device. The input devices can be considered as the devices which can return 6 specific types of logical input. The first one is the locator. A locator device, it is going to provide a position in the world coordinate to the user program. It is usually implemented by means of a pointing device such as a mouse or a trackball. The next input is the choice. The choice devices allow the user to select one of a discrete number of options. So we can use a mouse to select one of the menu item. String. A string device is a logical device that is going to provide the ASCII strings to the user program. So this logical device is usually implemented by means of a physical keyboard. A series of characters can be given as the input. Then the stroke. A stroke device returns an array of locations. So we can think of pushing down a mouse button and then transferring the data into the specified array, and then releasing the button to end this transfer. Then we have the valuator. Valuators provide analog input to the user program. On some graphical systems, we are going to find the boxes or the dials which are going to provide the valuator input. Widgets within various toolkits, they are going to provide the facility through the graphical devices such as slide bars and radio boxes. So whenever we want to give the analog input, we can make use of the valuators. And last type of a logical input device is the pick. A pick device, it is going to return the identifier of an object. It is going to return one number associated with the object on the display to the user program. It is usually implemented with the physical device, what were you going to use for a locator, something like a mouse, but it is going to have a separate software interface for the user program. Some devices such as the data tablet, they are going to return a position to the program. Some of the devices like the mouse, trackball and the joystick, they are going to return the incremental inputs to the program. So the set of values what are collected, we are going to take into consideration like rotation of cylinders in a mouse. We are going to get a collection of x and y values. Similarly, the role of a trackball, it is going to return some continuous values to the program. So in this case, for some input devices, it will be difficult to obtain the absolute position. And because of the sensitivity of the device also, we may get some variables which will be not very specific. So these are some of the limitations of the input devices what we have to consider when we are going to take the values from them. The manner by which the input devices they are going to provide the input to the application program can be described in terms of two entities, that is a measure process and a device trigger. The measure of a device is what the device returns to the user program. The trigger of a device is a physical input on the device with which the user can signal the computer. For example, if I am having a button of the mouse and I am going to press or release the key, then I call that as a trigger. So after triggering, the value what is being written to the system, that means it can be a position information, or if it is a keyboard, it is a ASCII value. So these values are the measures. So whenever I am having input device, two things will be always present, that is the trigger and the measure. That means the action and the value what has to be returned after the action. Based on the trigger and the measure, that is the how and when of the input device, we can have three type of modes. The first one is the sample mode, then we have the request mode, and then we have the event mode. First one, the sample mode. The sample mode input is immediate. As soon as the function call in the user program is encountered, a measure is returned. Hence, there is no trigger required over here. In the sample mode, the user must have positioned the pointing device or they entered the data using the keyboard before the function call, because the measure is extracted immediately from the buffer. In the request mode, the input value is provided to the program only when the user triggers the device. A typical example is, suppose a keyboard. The application program here, it is going to request a keyboard input from the user. The user can type, he can erase, then he can correct. So the application program will be waiting there until the entire key is depressed. So here we have a series of request and measure, but this request and measure is coming only after the trigger. Only when there is a key press, only then we go for what has to be taken as the input. So this will be in a continuous loop until unless the input is given to the program. The request mode is not suitable for the programs which is interacting with the user, because many systems have more than one input device connected to them which will be collecting the input to the program. So we will go for the event mode. The event mode, it can handle multiple interactions. Suppose we are having multiple input devices connected to the system and each is having its own trigger and running a measuring process. Every time a device is triggered, an event is generated. The device measure, including the identifier for the device, it is placed in an event queue. This process of placing events in the event queue is completely independent of what the application program does with these events. One way how it can be run is shown in the figure over here. This application program can examine the front queue in the queue, or if the queue is empty, it can wait for an event to occur. If there is an event in the queue, the program can look for the first event's type and then decide what to do. For example, if the first event is from the keyboard, but the application program is not interested in the keyboard input, the event can be discarded and the next event in the queue can be examined. Another approach is where we can go for associating a function called as a callback with a specific type of events, which we are going to learn later. So from the perspective of the Windows system, the operating system queries or polls the events which are present in the queue regularly, and then it is going to execute the callbacks corresponding to the events in the queue. This approach is best because the one which is currently used with the Windows system, it has been proved very effective in the client server environments. Some of the events for the input devices are the window event. The window event, it is a callback function which is used for resizing, which can be used for making a window front or back, or it can go for iconifying a window also. Mouse event, it is a set of callback functions which are used for clicking one or more buttons. Motion event means whenever we are having a mouse movement, only then this event will be working. If there is no mouse movement, it will not work. Only when there is a movement in the mouse, only then we are going to look for running this particular callback function. We can also have a keyboard function or a keyboard event which will work whenever we are going to press or release a key. We also can have an idle event, that means which is actually an event which will be running whenever no other significant events are running in the event queue. If computer graphics has to be useful for a variety of real applications, it must function in a world of distributed computing and networks. So in this world, our building blocks are the entities called as the servers, which can perform the task for the clients. The clients and the servers can be distributed over a network or contained entirely within a single computational unit. So some examples of the servers include the print servers, which can allow sharing of a high-speed printing among the multiple users. Compute servers, such as remotely located high-performance computers, which are accessible from multiple user programs. File servers that allow users to share the files and programs regardless of the system they are logged into. And terminal servers that can handle dial-in access. So user and the user programs that make use of these services are the clients or the client programs. Servers can also exist at a lower level of granularity within a single operating system. The OS, it is going to provide a clock service that multiple client programs can use. We can look at multiple clients and a server over here. A workstation with a raster display, a keyboard and a pointing device such as a mouse is a graphics server. The server can provide output services on its display and input services to the keyboard and pointing device. These services are potentially available to clients anywhere on the network. Our programs, that is OpenGL application programs, they are the clients that use the graphics server. Within an isolated system, that means if you are having only one system, independent system, this distinction may not be very clear. However, when you are going to run the same program using a graphics server on the network, then we have to make use of the client and the server model. We can have a program which can handle multiple events. The events are given as the input and they are placed in the event queue. So a graphical system is recognizing multiple types of callback functions, and these functions they will be supplied by the user whenever the particular event occurs. For example, if I am having an event called as mouse function, I can give that as glut mouse function, and in the parameter I am going to specify the function name, that is my mouse. So this is the event which is going to be occurring. So this event will be placed in the event queue, and when the turn of this event occurs, this will be executed. A callback is a function with a specific type of event associated with it. We can have multiple types of callbacks in a glut. So whenever I want to make use of a display function, I can make use of glut display function. If I want to make use of a mouse button, I can make use of the glut mouse function. And then if I want to make use of the movement of the mouse has to be taken into consideration, I can go for a glut motion function. When the mouse is moving but there is no key pressed, then I have to go for the glut passive motion function. These are some of the events which can be handled by the glut. The display callback is executed whenever a window has to be modified. So whenever it is first opened or it is reshaped, it is made big or small, whenever a window is brought to the foreground or to the background, and whenever the program is going to change, that means in all these cases we can make use of the glut display function. The glut display function will be present in the main. Every glut program will be having a display callback. So when I make use of the glut display function and a parameter within it, for example here I have the my display, so it identifies which function has to be executed. So here the function named as my display has to be executed. The display list, it is going to illustrate how we can use the client and the server on a network to improve the interactive graphics performance. So because we have only one processor in the system and that processor cannot do all the work, so for displaying and all, we can make use of one more processor which is called as the display processor. This display processor, it is also called as the display memory or the display file or the display list. So this leads to flickerless images on the display. So the display list is a set of OpenGL commands and they can be stored and they can be used. That is another advantage. Once we have created the display list, the information about this, it is copied into the display processor on the server machine. So once we copy it, we can make use of this multiple times by going for evaluating and retransmitting the data over and over to draw the frame. If we make use of the display list, it is going to reduce the time because the number of CPU cycles to perform the actual data transfer is reduced because it is available in the display processor or the display memory. We don't have to go back to the processor again and again. It will be stored in a separate processor called as the display processor. This is one way of executing the program very quickly. Another advantage of the display list is it can be shared with multiple clients because it is in a server. And for the best performance, like when we are having the matrix transformations, lightings and material calculations, so once we are done with these expensive computations, that means it requires a lot of time and effort. Once we have completed these computations, we can store them in our display list or the display processor or the display file. And then it will be used multiple times. But the drawback over here is once we compile the display list, it cannot be modified again. That is the drawback of the display list. The display list consists of multiple APIs for manipulating it. So the first one is a GL generate list. The GL generate list is an API which is used for creating one or more number of display list object. So this parameter, it is going to give us the list to create and it is going to return the index of the beginning of the continuous display list blocks. For example, in the GL generate list, if I am giving the range as 3, then I will be getting the values as 1, 2 and 3. That means 3 display list objects are available to me. That is the display list object 1, 2 and 3. If the GL generate list is not able to create a new display list object, then it is going to return 0. Suppose I want to delete a display list, then we can go for using the API GL delete list. Of course, you can specify the number within the GL display list and that particular object will be deleted. Then we have a set of APIs, that is GL new list and GL end list. That means they will always come in a pair. Whenever you want to write any OpenGL commands into the display list, you have to write that between the API GL new list and GL end list. After it has been written, then we compile this and then it will be going for rendering. That means to the final display, if it has to go, first we have to write that in the GL new list and the GL end list, the set of statements. Those set of statements, they will be compiled and they will be rendered. The GL new list, it is consisting of 2 arguments. The first one is the list number, the display list number. That means which has to be created. That number has to be given as the first argument. And the second argument is in which mode we are going to run this display list. We can run the display list in 2 modes, that is compile and execute. That means then and there only, if you want to see the output, we can go for compile and execute, or else we can just go for GL compile. So there will be 2 arguments in the GL new list. Whenever we want to execute a display list, we can make use of the GL call list API. If I want to execute multiple display lists at a time, then we can make use of the GL call lists every frame. So we don't have to specify the exact index to the display. You can also specify the base offset. So the range offset what is there, you can give that also by making use of GL list base. So whenever the GL call list is called, the actual index will be computed by adding the base and the offset, and then that display list will be executed. So GL generate list is for generating an ID for a display list. GL call list is for executing one display list. GL call lists is used for executing multiple display lists. GL list base is used for specifying the offset for a display list. Here we are illustrating all the APIs which are associated with the display list. A display list is nothing but it is a set of OpenGL APIs which are used for creating and executing an object without actually disturbing the main processor. We will have all this work done by another processor for the computer graphics, which is called as a display processor. So we should make use of special APIs whenever we are making use of this display list. So to create a display list, we have to make use of an API which is called as GL generate list. In the GL generate list, I have given the value as 1. That means I want to create one display list and the ID of that one. That means it may not be 1. It will be stored in one memory block, and whatever the ID is present for that memory block, that will be transferred into a variable called as the index. That index, it will indicate the display list number. Then I want to compile and I want to see the display list. Suppose I am writing a code for drawing a triangle. Then I have to encode, or I have to put the statements between the GL new list and the GL end list. As usual, by making use of the GL begin and the GL end, we are going to write the code for creating a triangle by making use of the 3 vertices V0, V1 and V2. So they are encoded between GL new list and GL end list. After writing this, you can see that in the GL new list, I have given first parameter is the index and the second parameter is the GL compile. That means when we go for GL compile, then and there itself the output won't be seen. It will be seen only when you go for execution. So after writing this, suppose I want to see the output and I want to write that onto the display list, then you can go for giving the API GL call list. GL call list, it will be having one argument. This argument is about the index. The index number whatever you are going to specify. So in this case, if the index number is matching with the triangle will be given as the output. Suppose this index is a different index, that particular program will be executed. And suppose I want to delete this particular display list. You can do that by making use of the GL delete list. And I am going to specify here the index and the 1. That means how many display list I want to delete and what is their index value. When I give this, then my display list will be deleted. So the display list will be executed whichever is present between the APIs GL new list and GL end list. So all the statements which are present between these two APIs, they will be recorded as one display list, and it can be used multiple times by making use of the API GL call list. If I want to execute multiple display list, we can go for GL call list. So GL call list, it will be having 3 parameters, that is the number of list to draw, the data type and the pointer to the array. In the GL call list, when I am using the GL generate list and with the value 10, that means I am creating 10 display list. So each of them will be having an index, and we can make use of this index for any other processing. Suppose I am having a set of statement GL new list, and within this I have the index comma GL compile. That means I am compiling a display list with the index value given by index, and this should be always enclosed between GL new list and GL end list. Suppose I want to compile any other display list, I can specify that by using GL new list index plus 9. That means I want to execute the last display list, because index plus 9, that will be the last one. So GL compile. So this will be enclosed between GL new list and GL end list. If I want to display list based on the index, then you can making use of the GL list base. GL list base index. Suppose I want to set the base offset value as 5, and based on the 5 I have to go for calling the display list. You can go for GL call list, the offset value and the data type and the list, the display list, whatever you want to call. So by making use of GL call list, you can go for executing multiple display lists based on their base offset value. Sometimes the display function will be called multiple times by multiple events. So when we want to avoid this multiple executions of the display callback in a single pass, so then we can go for making use of the glut post redisplay. The glut post redisplay will be having a flag. So based on the flag, the glut is going to check if the flag is set at the end of the event loop. If it is set, only then the display callback function will be executed, else it will not be executed. So glut post redisplay is used whenever we are going for modifications in the display, and this can be used only once because of the flag. You don't have to make use of the display function again and again. You can go for just using one API which is called as a glut post redisplay, and this glut post redisplay will be having a flag. Based on that, you can go for executing only once at the end of the event loop. The glut mouse function is another callback function. So this is for the event mouse. So this will be having 4 parameters. The first one is the button. The button can be left, right or the middle button. It depends upon the type of mouse what we are using. If it is a 3-button mouse, it will be having left, right and middle button. If it is only a 2-button mouse, means it will be having left and the right button. The state can be up or down. That means when you press or when you release, that is called as the state. And the X and Y will indicate the row number and the column number where the mouse button has been pressed, because the mouse should be present within your working window. So to know that, we will make use of the X and Y values. So the glut mouse function will execute a function called as myMouse function. This myMouse function can be written anywhere, but the API glut mouse function should be present in the main. It should be inside the main function. It should be called from the main function. So the format for the myMouse function, that is the statements what has to be given. The definition will be given within the double quotes of the myMouse function. It will be making use of the button state and the X and Y parameters within it. It may make use of the X and Y, or it may not make use of X and Y. But the 4 parameters are necessary for the myMouse function. The glut keyboard function, it is used for setting the keyboard callback function. It will be having 3 parameters: key, X and Y. So the X and Y, it will signify the present window, and the key will be associated with the ASCII character. So the ASCII character will be returned whenever you are going for a glut keyboard function. Based on the key, we can take some decision that is given by the keyboard function. The glut motion function is associated with the mouse. Whenever the mouse is moving within the given window, that means we can know whether it is within the window by making use of the parameters X and Y. And if one or more mouse buttons are pressed, we can make use of the API glut motion function, and we can modify accordingly. So whenever we are having within the current window, the mouse is moving, and that information has to be captured, and that information will be made use of for modifying the program. So this can be done by making use of the API glut motion function. It consists of 2 parameters, that is X and Y. The glut passive motion function is also associated with the mouse function. But here the mouse they will not have any button press. But the mouse will be moving, but there won't be any button press. So that is called as the glut passive motion function. This will also be consisting of 2 parameters X and Y. But here we will concentrate on the movement of the mouse without any key press. So to ensure that it is in my current window, we are going to make use of the X and Y coordinate values. When we capture the X and Y coordinate values, we will come to know whether it is present in my present window or not. You must remember that whenever we are having a program, and in the program when we have the main function, the last statement in the main is always the glut main loop. This glut main loop ensures that all other events which are present in the program will be completed. So this glut main loop, it is going to put the entire program in an infinite event loop, and then it is going to check for every event one by one in the event queue. So we have the event queue because we are running the event mode. In the event mode, we will be having an event queue. So the glut main loop goes to the event queue and checks if all the events have been executed. And if all the events have been executed according to their appropriate callback functions, then the glut main loop will close the main function. If no callback is defined for the event, then that particular event can be ignored. So the glut main loop ensures that if I am having any glut keyboard function, glut mouse function, glut idle function, glut passive motion function, glut motion function, any of these APIs if it is there, this glut main loop ensures that all these events, they will be executed. That is why the glut main loop will be present as the last statement in the main program of any OpenGL program. Some of the additional callback functions are the glut reshape function, which is used whenever there is a modification in the output window. Then we can go for the glut reshape function. It will be having the width and the height as the parameters. Another API is a glut idle function, which will be executed whenever the processor is not executing any other event. So this idle function can be executed in the gap when the processor is free from executing any other event. So if you want to change the callback function, we can make use of another API to call a new function. If you want to clear all the callbacks, then we can set the value to be as, the argument to be as null. Whenever we are having the callback related functions, we will be making use of the window. So the coordinates which are sent to the callback, they are in terms of the window coordinate systems, and this window coordinate system, it is going to start at the upper left corner of the window. The origin, that is 0 0, will be at the upper left, whereas when we go for the world coordinate system, the origin will be at the lower left. So the lower left will be having the 0 0 value. Whenever we are going for a callback related coordinates, we must ensure that the y coordinate must always be inverted. That means the y coordinate will be got after subtracting the h minus y, because the height, what is there? For the height, we have to consider the origin now as the lower left and not the upper left. So if I have a point x and y, the x will not change, but there will be a change in the y. This y value, it will depend on the height minus y. Other APIs which are used in the window management concerned with the callback are glut create window. This glut create window is used for giving a title to the current window. And if I want to set my current window as one particular window with a integer number, that means an ID, we can make use of an API called as set window and specify the window number. If I want to get a value for the current window, that means I want to see what is the number for my current window, I can get that by making use of the get window. So this get window will return an integer, and that integer will correspond to the current working window. Looking at the spectrum of the applications of interactive computer graphics, we can observe that a large fraction of them are involving some sort of interactive modeling. So because a display list can call other display list, they are very powerful tools for building hierarchical models, which can incorporate multiple relationships among the parts of a model. For example, we can consider modeling a simple face. So this face will be consisting of eyes, nose, ear, all these things. All these can be included within one single display list, and this display list can enclose a display list for a eyes, display list for a nose, and display list for a mouth. So what is the advantage of this approach? We can make use of the fact that multiple instances of the same component can be called by using the display list multiple times. For example, two eyes are there. So I can make use of only one display list with a little difference in the distance to create two eyes. Second, if you want to create a different character, we can change one or more of the display list for the constituent parts, but we can leave the display list for the face unchanged because the structure of the face is described already and it will not be changed. So this is the advantage of the display list. We will have the hierarchical model, and we can go for creating multiple objects by making use of multiple display list. And one display list itself can consist of multiple smaller display list. One display list itself can be modified to give rise to other object with little modification of the previous display list. That is the advantage of the display list and modeling, which is widely used in project works and OpenGI programs. Okay, then we will continue in the next class. That's all for today. Thank you very much.